So next up, we have Máirín, who's going to talk to us about data for change. So we've had data terrifying us, data going to make us better, and now data for change.
Absolutely.
Everybody, big round of applause.
Yeah, so welcome everyone. Amazing to be here in Belfast at this fantastic summit. And I love the theme. I absolutely love the theme about impacting the future, which is just fantastic. It's something I really am passionate about. So I'm going to have to keep looking over here to the side. I thought there was going to be a screen I could see. So basically I'm Máirín Murray. So a little bit about me. So I grew up outside Saintfield in the townland of Carrickmannon. I'm a Murray. The Murrays have been there for absolutely centuries. I think 1752 we found a map. So it's a total Murray stronghold. And so basically I ended up going to do philosophy in Trinity, and then I went on and I did a master's in multimedia systems in the School of Computer Science in Trinity at a later point. And I graduated then at a really exciting time. It was around the time of the dot-com crash, the boom. It was kind of the boom and then the crash around 2000. And I ended up working in the BBC in Belfast and London, developing multi-platform products and programs. And my focus was very much on inclusion. It was about getting everyone involved in being kind of co-creators, co-makers in terms of digital content and digital products. And I worked on a fantastic project, which was about getting young people across the UK involved in that process, because I really believe there's something really powerful when we are tech makers, which I know is the name of this conference. So that's something I'm really passionate about. So I'm going backwards and forwards here. So I set up Tech for Good in Dublin. We're a community of over 2,500 activists, scientists, designers, everybody's welcome, because I think the magic happens when we have really inclusive communities, a real mix of different people in the room. That's when real innovation happens. And more recently, I set up TechFoundHer, which I'm going to talk about today. And partly, I'm not a serious data activist, but that became part of the work of TechFoundHer over the past year. So I think we're living, firstly a little bit. So growing up in the Troubles, it was like there were very few opportunities. Like the most successful business person in the parish was a glazier. He was literally fixing bombed out buildings. He was fixing the glass in bombed out buildings. And it's so different today. Like we're living in such an incredible moment in history where we can all have impact. We can all have global impact. We can create products that make the world a better place. So our mission with TechFoundHer, it's about getting more women involved. We need more women to start and lead tech companies. And that's basically what our mission is. And our focus is very much on tech. So it's very much in terms of saying, how can we get more women to be tech curious, to be tech literate, to develop tech competence as well. So look, I was aware of the stats, like 2% of funding from investors globally goes to women founders. And myself and Vicky Toomey-Lee, we were thinking, well, look, one way around this is let's have more women starting tech companies, because there's always this argument and excuse, oh, women don't come with the tech ideas, they don't come with the scalable ideas, they don't come with the big ideas that are investable. So that's where our focus was very much, and is very much, on building that tech competence and those tech skills. So our target over 5 years is to create 1,000 women-led tech companies with revenue, each with a revenue of over 10 million. So where it all started, May last year. Myself and Vicky organised the TechFoundHer Bootcamp in the Mansion House in Dublin. And look, it was amazing. Some people here I shouldn't really be saying this, but some people are in the room who were there last year, one of our speakers earlier. But the whole idea was to get women tech founders. We all know the power of role models. So to get women tech founders who've exited in the room, we've amazing ones on the island of Ireland, like Anya Kerr, Trish Scanlon. We've got a lot of different role models, and also people who were thinking of starting a company, thinking of creating a product, but hadn't just gone for it yet. So there was just amazing energy, and it was really kind of a can-do kind of attitude in the room. But basically, like I've been hearing stories over the past year, like women have been telling me of the challenges they faced, the barriers they faced in getting funding. And we all started digging as a network. We started, let's start digging into the data. Let's start looking for answers and try to get insights in what's going on, because we need the data if we're going to come up with solutions. We need to have answers in terms of what the baseline data is, in terms of what the trends are, in terms of what the issues are, if we're going to kind of come up with solutions. So we started looking for answers. And this is where we are now. So I'm calling myself a data activist. So basically that's one piece of what we're doing as a kind of one of our activities. And like data, it's such a powerful leverage for change. If you don't measure it, you cannot change it. And so data activism, it's all about looking for the data to uncover hidden patterns and revealing the inequity, and really kind of pushing for meaningful solutions. And it's also about stirring things up, because once you start looking for data, you can start publishing the data. People are aware that you're looking at what they're doing, so that creates a whole kind of pressure for change as well. So the portrait of the tech founder is a young man. Maybe I don't know if you know the book, The Portrait of the Artist is a Young Man. But yeah, so on a serious note, there is a huge amount of gender bias and gender stereotyping in the founder community and in the tech founder community particularly. Like the EU, they recognise this. The EU has programs specifically designed for women founders and women founders of deep tech, because they say that as women, we face additional challenges, additional barriers. There's structural and there's cultural bias. And the data is telling us there's a problem. I mean, if you look at the data here, in Europe, of all the VC funding data, 87% goes to all men funding. Ireland came 15th. The Republic of Ireland came 15th in Europe in terms of companies that were scaled, that got investment to scale, that were women, in terms of women. And 24% of tech companies, this is again, and I think Tech Ireland is just in the Republic, no, Tech Ireland is all Ireland. So 24% of tech, only 24% of tech companies and startups had a female founder. So look, there's a huge need for change. So we started asking politicians and government agencies, we started asking them questions. We said, we want the gender aggregated data. We want to know where our public funding is going. Look, it's as simple as this. We are I think, 51% of the population. And very simply, we want our share of the public funding. We've all contributed to the money that goes into the public funding streams. We want our share. Like being in a startup, it's a huge experience for learning. We learn experientially, and women need to learn. They need to feel by doing startups. Maybe the second startup, they succeed. So this is something about equity, but it's not just about equity. Our economy needs it. Our society needs it as well. They need our contribution. So this is the power of data visualization. This was we got answers back from our parliamentary questions, and this was some of the answers that we got back, that 75% of Enterprise Ireland funding goes to men. And what was great was that it stirred debate. It started people we got press coverage on the back of the answers to these parliamentary questions, and people started the debate going in terms of what is going on. The rate of progress is too slow. I don't know if you know, but this year, the theme for International Women's Day this year is Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress. We need a step change. We can't just keep bumbling on like this. Change is not happening fast enough. This is a piece that I wrote in the journal. I'm just going to read it out because I can't see it from here. So it says, while there is growing awareness in Ireland about the shocking shortfall in funding going to women entrepreneurs, the debate about the entrenched bias women tech founders face and how to address this is just starting. There's often a formulaic groupthink approach to what types of sectors are funded and what an investable team looks like. So yeah, so we also were looking for transparency. We were saying, look, we want this data, and we want, as I said, the public funding data across the board, including the funding that investors, that VCs are also distributing. Now, this is a global movement. A few months ago in California, they passed a law, Bill 54, which will mandate venture capital firms to publish their data in terms of the diversity of who is getting the funding from a diversity perspective. So this was published in The Independent, where I kind of got more coverage on the back of that, saying, look, this is what we're looking for in Ireland as well. We want transparency of data. We want data to be collected and that the data is published. So there's been lots over the past 6 months. There's been a lot of jaw-dropping moments as myself and other women in the TechFoundHer network have gone looking for these questions. So for example, the definition of what is a female founder. I don't know, does anyone know the definition? What's a woman founder, female founder? Any ideas? Well, yeah, so you would assume that it would be a woman-led startup with the woman being the primary founder, but it's used in all sorts of different ways. Sometimes a female founder is if there's one woman in a team of 4, 25%, they said that's a female-founded company. And she doesn't even have to own equity. We also heard stories of people saying, agencies saying, oh, and we encourage companies to name one of their team as the founder, and then we put that into the bucket. We put that into the bucket of female-founded teams. So that was that was interesting to kind of find out. And again, it's interesting, but it's kind of like gender washing, really. That's what it is. It's giving the impression that the facts are not as bad as they are. Another thing was, in terms of, so the whole thing about kind of, which Marsha, you were talking about earlier, the data gap. So there is data gap. There are a lot of data gaps. So we got the answers back from the Department of Enterprise, from Enterprise Ireland, and there were data gaps. They actually said in their response, oh, we don't have any data on mixed, because we asked for data on all men teams, startup teams, all women startup teams, and mixed startup teams. And they came back and said, we don't have any data on mixed founder teams. And I was like, what? It was because in their mind, they hadn't even realized that because they associated all women team, they thought the women, they didn't have any data basically on all women teams. It was like we didn't exist. It was like, there are no women founders, It was, so that was kind of another interesting thing to discover along the way. And there is that need. There's the power of that transparency and the power of publishing. So I suppose what I would say is that, look, this is a really incredible moment in history, as I said earlier, but we have to kind of find ways to leapfrog. We cannot be going along at the current slow rate of progress. And this is where data, I think, can be really, really powerful. And I'd encourage, women in Northern Ireland to do the same, start asking the questions, like where is the funding going? Where is the public funding going? And to track that, because I think that would be a really interesting project to start in terms of creating change. So Ennis McCormick, who's one of my heroes, she's an amazing quote, and I think this is the thing, we need to be impatient if we're going to change. And she says, those who have can always argue that tomorrow is the right time for change. For the have-nots, today is not soon enough. So what I'd say is women founders, we are absolutely here. We're like impatient for change, and we're absolutely ambitious to have impact. So thank you.